A truly heartbreaking study has just been published in the Journal of Pediatrics showing that gunshot wounds are now the #3 cause of death for children in the United States. If you spent any time in the US or read any news about the US lately, then you already know that guns are a very serious problem here. We have so many mass shootings now that there have been several times in the past year where I've read a story about a mass shooting and confused it for another mass shooting that happened earlier the same day. I looked it up, and sure enough, in 2015, there were 372 mass shootings in the United States. So that's more than one per day all year long. Another fun fact I found was that more Americans have died in the US from guns in the past 50 years than all Americans who have ever died in every war the U.S. has ever fought in its entire history. Fun fact. So this new statistic that gunshot wounds are the third leading cause of death for children in the U.S. isn't exactly surprising, but I want to talk about it because while it is terrible, the news outlets that are reporting on it are being misleading in a way that I think is important to call out. For instance, over on Newsweek, an article declares the study findings in the headline and then opens by pointing out the tragic deaths of 4 children who were accidentally shot with guns in June alone, June of this year. So we're not even done June yet. That's pretty depressing. All 4 kids were under the age of 10. Here's the issue. The study in question was about children as we define them legally, so under the age of 18, 0 to 17. And it wasn't just about accidental deaths. It includes murders and suicides. When you break down the actual categories, you'd see that the deaths of the children that were mentioned at the top of that article actually account for only about 6% of all of the deaths studied. Newsweek doesn't link to the study, although I do. You can find the link on my Patreon below. The entire thing is actually available in full on Pediatrics' website. And you can see there that the researchers broke the victims down into 2 age groups. There was 0 to 12 and 13 to 17. Though the older group should be significantly smaller, considering that it encompasses only 5 years of age compared to 13 years of age in the younger group, older kids actually accounted for 82% of all victims. I'm not just nitpicking here. The problem with portraying all of these gun deaths as accidentally happening to small children means that people will get the wrong idea of what the problem is and how we can go about solving it. If the majority of these deaths really were accidental deaths of small children who were playing with guns, then the solution is simply investing in gun safety education for both children and for parents, making sure that guns are locked up and emptied of ammo, making sure that children know what to do if they ever find a gun, making sure that guns can only be used by their adult owners, for instance. I say that that's a simple solution because it is basic. But of course, in the US, when it comes to gun control, nothing is ever truly simple or as in easy, thanks to groups like the NRA lobbying the Republican senators that they own. But that is a fairly straightforward plan. But because the actual data shows that the majority of these children are teenagers who are being murdered or killing themselves, the solution actually becomes a multi-pronged one. First of all, we have to do what I just said, because there are still small children accidentally killing themselves, and no matter how many kids that's happening to, it should be happening to 0. We need to fix that. But we also need to do things like keep kids out of gangs and keep gangs out of neighborhoods, because a lot of these deaths of adolescents and teenagers are due to gang activity. We also need to make sure our kids have better access to psychological counseling, especially those kids that are most at risk having access to guns. And we need to address underlying factors that might exist, like poverty. And the thing is, the researchers say all of this really clearly in their study, but it's being overlooked because people care more about toddlers accidentally shooting themselves than they do about poor 15-year-old kids who are dying in gang shootouts. The latter is the greater problem, but it also requires the most complicated solution. And unfortunately, humans tend to prefer dramatic events with simple fixes.